there.
Ah,
Oh, hi, Philippe.
you
Hello, sir. Look at that view, though. Goodness. Can't tell where he's.
hello, Jeff. Ah,
The connection is a little slow, but I think okay. That's great. It's nice to see you.
nice to see you. Can you? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. There's a bit of a delay, so just when you're speaking, I will speak.
Good. Happy
Okay.
to be with you.
I'm thrilled. So, Philippe, can you just tell us a bit about introduce yourself?
Okay, I need to move a bit because I'm losing you. I'm going closer to my transmitter.
Oh, okay.
Uh, okay.
Better?
Yeah, I guess we have a bit less wind.
Oh, okay. Still have-
You know, I have trouble hearing you.
Can you hear me now, Philippe?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you.
So, so we still have a good view. Start with you. Introduce yourself and tell us your.
Okay, I'm here inside.
That's fine too.
Probably it's probably better. Okay, here we are in the heart of Burgundy and in Givry, and obviously a very warm day, very windy too. We'd like to get some rain because the summer is pretty warm, and the grapes would need a bit of water.
Mm-hmm.
And so the estate, Domaine du Cellier aux Moines, was created in the 12th century. Not by my ancestors, because they were monks who created the estate. So, as you know, monks have been quite active in Burgundy in the old days to identify somehow the best terroir, as we call that in France. And in Burgundy, they did a lot in terms of identifying those terroirs. So this small estate in Givry was created around 1130. And I'll show you a view on the vineyard later. And it has been planted with vine for almost 9 centuries. It was almost disappearing from the map in the early 2000, and we were lucky to be able to buy that small estate with that old house in 2004. And since then, you know, for 10 years, we worked hard on somehow resurrecting that old estate, both the vineyard and the old cellar. And here we are today, almost 15 years later, with an old estate, but which is very much alive, producing mostly in Givry. We produce mostly red wine from the Pinot Noir, which is the grape we use in Burgundy for red wines. And we do produce also some very fine white wines from different villages outside of Givry. So villages that the name may sound familiar, like Montagny, like Santenay, like Chassagne-Montrachet, and like Puligny-Montrachet. But all in all, it's a very small estate. We produce only, we have only 9 hectares. We produce around 30,000 bottles a year. It looks like a lot of bottles, but for an estate of wine, it's pretty small. And it happened that, in fact, despite the appearance, I am a young vigneron, since we really started that journey as we were, 55 years old. So we are still young vigneron, although we look slightly older.
Philippe, would you mind telling us a little bit about your story, your history? Did you always want to make wine? Was it always in your blood, or what did you do before this?
I'll try not to be too boring with old stories, but I studied agronomy as a start. I married a young lady at the time, who is from Burgundy. And our dream with Catherine was always to have one day our own estate. However, we were not directly in that business at the time, so we did many other things. And my first job, by the way, was to promote French wine in the USA. So we spent 10 years living in New York.
Oh, good.
Outside New York, and promoting French wine and French food across America. And I should say that it was a dream job at the time. We were in our early 30s, and that was the 80s in America, which were, I tend to say, easy years at the time. And I say hello to my friends from these days who are listening, like Odila, I guess.
Yeah.
And then after I joined the corporate world with a famous American company who has now disappeared. The name was Seagram.
Oh, yeah.
And I worked for Seagram for a number of years, but I worked for Seagram in France. And at the time, Seagram was the owner of Moum and Perrier-Jouët Champagne, which I was heading at the time in Champagne. And then after I spent 20 years with LVMH, Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, since early. I joined them in 94, and I retired in 2012. And there I was running champagne companies and the spirit division, as well as other divisions such as watch and jewelry division, which I started as a way to diversify my experience, while at the same time we were starting to put our foot in Burgundy to start our fourth professional life as farmers. So we always wanted to. I don't know if now that there is less light, I don't know if
we can see out. Yeah.
You see the background, no?
Yeah.
So, in fact, we found that old estate almost by coincidence. I mean, we were obviously looking for places in Burgundy, and one day we visited that place, which was in very poor shape. But we fell in love with it. We fell in love with the history. We realized that it was full of history. We fell in love with the landscape. We fell in love with the appellation Givry, which we felt was slightly underrated at the time. So we said, this is where we need to start our new journey. And we started from scratch. I went back to school and my wife did it too, to learn a bit more, to be up to date with what was going in Burgundy. We hired a small team. And here we are now, running that small estate and enjoying every minute of it.
So you said you had always wanted to have an estate. Was that were you actively looking at the time and you found Cellier, or you were just around and it jumped out at you?
No, we were looking. We were looking around.
Okay.
And we were dreaming of a place where there will be, which will be a great terroir, where we would enjoy living, where our children, who are now grown up in their mid-30s, would enjoy coming back. Mm-hmm. So it was a kind of we had drafted a kind of impossible portrait of what we would enjoy doing. By chance, in our hunt for this, we found this one, and that was immediately, I would say that was obvious that it was the place where we wanted to have our last piece of career. And the only thing we underestimated is probably the amount of work and the time needed to put it back on its foot and on track. But I think this is what wine learns you. Things takes time. You start improving things, and then you realize that you are not fully satisfied with the result, and you keep working on that. And Domaine du Cellier Moines is our daily challenge, where we, for instance, today we were having a lunch with the winemaker and a neighbor who does great wines, and we were comparing notes and exchanging ideas and views, and you keep challenging yourself, not vis-a-vis the competitors but challenging yourself with nature. I mean, nature is changing the game every day.
Yeah.
So gives you a bit of modesty and humility, because you're dealing with nature, so you have to adjust, to adapt, and we are constantly looking for this improvement, adaptation, and we think we are right, but we don't know until we get the final result. So it's very, very different from the corporate world, in a sense that the boss is nature, and you need to cope with that.
How do you decide what to do first when you're going to take over a property like that? Do you renovate the building so that you have offices and living space? Do you do the cave? Do you do the soil in the vineyard? How do you decide what to do first, and then what do you do?
It's a good question. The office's space is probably the last thing you look for. Having a decent office is probably the last thing you look for. I think the number one question is really the vineyard, because everything will start with your grapes, and if you don't get the right grapes, and if the vineyard is in poor shape, you know that you will be struggling for life to get it right. So the first thing is to have an assessment on the vineyard, because even though it's Pinot Noir, depending what was planted years ago, you may end up with poor selection of Pinot Noir or great selection of Pinot Noir. And you need to start working on your vineyards and learn your vineyards to make sure that you have the right technical approach. And every year you will learn something. Even today, in 2020, we have learned a great deal of things this year with the new year. Obviously, since you want to live there, you better have a roof and running water and electricity. So at the same time, if you want to live there, and keep your family with you, you need to have a decent home. So I would say that the first years were extremely intense in terms of working on both fronts, the house, the cellar, and the vineyard. But the key, really, what makes the difference is the vineyard. What makes the difference in a great wine is the grape. So this is your number one priority. And I think you can surround yourself with all the talents and the technology. If you don't have the right grape, you won't have the right wine. Does it make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Then can you explain what is the journey from deciding what you're going to do to make the vineyard better, but then you're going towards being biodynamic also, right? That's a very big change.
I think this is very much in the same logic. If you are conscious of the importance of grape and how important is the grape quality for your wine, there is a stage at which you start asking yourself about going organic.
Yeah.
And for us, I would say after 5 years, it became obvious that we will need to make that transition. Now, in order to make the transition, you need to have, I would say, not only the mindset, but the right team also to do that. So we thought a lot about it. We studied that option for a number of years. And finally, we were able to make the transition to organic and then biodynamics by having a young, brilliant winemaker joining us 5 years ago now, who had trained in biodynamics at different estates, who were very experimented in that. And bringing that experience and that mindset with us was key. And we realized very quickly after, I would say, even the first year that we went to organic in 2016, we had some very interesting progress made. In 2017, that was our first year in biodynamics, which is a step further. And I think we had evidence that it was helping us to be better vine grower. So, but we had the right team to do it.
So I want to ask you, as a businessman, is there a return on the investment of switching to organic? Or love it enough and know you want to make the best thing?
There should be a return, but it takes time. And obviously, when you go to organic and biodynamics, it increases your cost of production because you spend much more time working in the vineyard. And then you know that you are not going. The best case scenario is that you will not increase your yield. Eventually, it will reduce. But we had already rather modest yields, so we didn't have the drop in yields. But we had an increase in a very substantial increase in manpower and time spent in the vineyard. So yes, there is a cost. So after, is there do you have the possibility or to adjust your price in order to integrate this incremental cost? It's a question that may vary according to estates. But for us, we decided to go not for the financial return. We thought that the return would come, and in fact, it's coming. It takes time, but it was more a philosophy in terms of what we wanted our life to be. I mean, I didn't become a wine grower at 55 to run a big operation and not be proud of every bottle that we are selling. So biodynamics for us was obvious, and it was mandatory in a way. I mean, that was part of the vision. It took us 10 years to get there, and now we are doing it. We are proud to do it, and to answer your question, yes, maybe there will be a return.
It's an interesting thing for me because as a buyer in a restaurant, if people don't ask if it's organic, but when I make a buying decision, I might choose the organic over something not organic, and it's easier to sell because it's something else you can say that's a positive thing of wine. But does it translate into the glass? Do the vines become healthier, or the vineyard become healthier so it withstands frost and mildew, so your investment is stronger, or does the wine actually improve?
It's not because I will try to explain that. Are you drinking organic coffee or?
Yes, exactly. It's water now.
It's water. Okay. It's not because it's organic that it's obviously better. Because we farm organically and biodynamics, I think we have become better farmers.
Oh.
I mean that we are taking a much better care of our vineyards. We work a lot by anticipation, as biodynamics technique help you to protect the vineyard, to prepare the vineyard, help the vineyard to resist better to some disease or some attacks like the mildew or the oidium. So you are very much into the anticipation mode. That's why you spend more time in the vineyard. Huh? You look at it before. It's like a doctor looking at a patient before it gets sick and helping him to reinforce its immunotherapy, its immune system to avoid getting sick. So you become a better farmer, spending more time in your vineyards, caring more for your vineyards. And as you do that, I am absolutely sure that now, if you do that, you're able to get a better quality of grapes. And if you get a better quality of grapes, and if you don't screw up things when you do your winemaking and your aging and your barrel aging and then your bottling, and if you take time and leave time to the grapes to ferment properly and to the wine to age properly, normally you get a much better wine. And for instance, I'm going to give you one example for the Clos du Cellier one, which is our main wine. We have 5 hectares. 5 hectares is 12 acres, I guess, roughly, around the house. And these acres, which looks the same, as a matter of fact, are very different. And by going organic and biodynamic, it helps us to really identify the very specific personalities of different plots in that unit. Okay. By identifying that, we start raising them like raising different kids. Okay. Taking care of them differently, harvesting them at different date, vinifying separately, aging them in barrels in different plots. Wow. And we end up improving individual components of the clos much better because of our move to organic, much better than if we would use conventional techniques for farming using chemicals, for instance. So, you become a sharper wine grower. It helps you to make better wine, and if you use and if you leverage all those things that you are doing better by anticipation and more in detail, then at the end, I guess, you're able to get a better wine.
That you explained that very
Eventually.
Well. I really appreciate that. No, that's a really good explanation. I want to ask you about the gravity-fed system and then a little tour of outside. But can you give people an overview of why Givry might be a little different as the appellation from your neighbors? What's unique about Givry?
Givry, first, is a small appellation in terms of size. So it's only 300 hectares. Very much, it's a great great village for red wine, and it's what could I say? It has a very long history, but for 1 century, it has been a bit forgotten. After World War I, after the phylloxera, it suffered a bit in terms of awareness. So it was a bit lost, like some other village of Côte Chalonnaise. And I think it's coming back. And it's a great, I would say, it has a great potential, and it's a great value for sure.
I want to put this picture, if I have it right. So this is, it's too big. This is where you live, right?
Yeah, it's exactly where I am now.
And then this gorgeous thing, it's not going to show right. But that is, explain what that is. That's your new building that you built. I'm sorry.
This is a cellar that we built near the old quarry of Givry, just down the house, which is a 4-level cellar operating only by gravity, which means it's going from the top level where we come with the grapes to the fermenting vats, then another floor below to the aging barrels, and then to the last floor, the 4th level, which is down underground, where we do the bottling. Okay. So it helps us to make wine without any pumping. Okay. And again, pumping is something that eventually nobody needs to be pumped in or pumped out. I don't know, but I mean, the wine is a living organism, so if you can avoid pumping it, it's better. So we don't pump. we use gravity to go from the grape to the bottle. And also the great merit of that building, if you can probably see it on this picture, is that it's it's 2/3 of it is underground. So temperature control is ideal, is constant, and humidity also is constant. So it's a great way to make wine in this condition.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, gravity, as you know, gravity was used by humankind before we invented electricity. So it's a very natural way to do things. Uh, and the last thing in the process that we do, as we use probably more time to raise our wines, which means we let the wine settle in the barrel and settled in the tanks before bottling. So again, filtration sometimes is like undressing someone. I mean, it's you let the wine show with all its characteristic and all its personality. You don't need to take out something from the wine which may make the wine less interesting.
Can you explain the words Cellier and Moines? What does that translate to, or where does that come from?
It's very simple. It means in French, in English, this is the cellar of the monks.
Oh, okay.
The monks who started that estate, and this is how the place has been called for centuries. So when we came in, we didn't change the name. We didn't put our name on the label, and I think it was paying tribute to these monks who had been there before us until the French Revolution, and it was just obvious that the name should be protected somehow.
I love that. Yeah.
So it's a bit complicated to pronounce, Cellier au Moines, but it's the label is so you probably have seen. I don't know if it's showing here. Well, maybe. So voila. It's showing the porch, the entrance of the old cellar. The name is a bit long. This is the kind of thing that a modern marketer would tell you that it's absolutely inappropriate. But anyway, we resurrected the estate and we pay tribute to the founders.
I love it. So, Philippe, we're at the half hour, and I want to let you go. I don't want to take too much of your time, but would you mind showing us out the window or back outside?
No, we go outside. If I don't lose you.
And you can flip the camera if you touch in the bottom right, there are two little arrows in a circle. Oh, that's good enough, though.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you can see. I'm standing on the wall now. If I fell and disappear from the picture, voilà. So you see the village of Givry.
Okay.
Village of Givry, and then the vineyards of Givry, and then of the rest of the Côte Chalonnaise. And just under, this is the Cellier one, which is one of the few. This is one of the few slopes facing south. Most of the slopes, as well as a few famous other slopes, are facing south. And as you can see from the tree behind me, it's a bit windy. And you know that wind, I learned that over time, that wind is a great friend of wine. Because wind helps you to dry the leaves after the rain. It ventilates, it brings freshness. And good wind is a good friend for good wine.
Excellent.
I learned that.
It's very true. It has been a pleasure chatting with you. Is there anything I missed that you want to say to people?
Oh, no, please come and visit us.
I hope to. Excited to meet you. Your wine is great. Have a chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, take care. See
Bye,
you
everyone. Cheers.
Bye-bye.